Hey everyone, today we're diving into the tragic case of Nicole Pietz, a woman whose life seemed full of hope, determination, and resilience, but who ultimately became the victim of a cruel and calculated crime. Addiction is often seen as a dead end, but many people fight their way back, finding strength to rebuild their lives, start families, and even help others battling the same struggles. Nicole's story began much the same way. She appeared to have overcome her darkest battles and was finally on a path toward happiness and stability. But behind her smile and behind the walls of her seemingly perfect marriage, darker truths were hidden. Nicole's case would go unsolved for years. Investigators spent 6 long years piecing together fragments of evidence before they finally brought the prime suspect to court. Even then, it took another year of legal proceedings before justice was served. What at first looked like a meticulously planned crime began to unravel because of tiny details. Details that, when carefully assembled, revealed the truth. But to understand the tragedy of Nicole Pietz, we must start at the very beginning. Before we dive into the case, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon to stay updated with every gripping true crime story and share your theories in the comments. Let's unravel the truth together. Nicole Pietz was born on February 26, 1973 in King County, Washington. She was the only child from her parents' marriage, which unfortunately broke apart while she was still in school. Despite that, Nicole was a lively, energetic, and friendly girl. In high school, she played sports, made friends easily, and was considered a natural charmer. One of her favorite places was Lake Sammamish, just east of Seattle. Every summer, she loved spending time there, enjoying nature and the calm of the water. After finishing high school, Nicole attended Western Washington College, where she studied public relations. At the same time, she remained active in sports and soon found a way to turn her passion into work. She became a fitness trainer at a local sports club, quickly earning respect from her colleagues and attracting loyal clients who enjoyed her group classes. Wanting to advance her career further, Nicole also studied management and eventually secured a position with a large mobile communications company. Outwardly, she seemed like a young woman who had everything under control, friendly, sociable, and always ready to help. But behind that image, she carried scars from earlier years. The divorce of her parents had deeply shaken her as a teenager. Left vulnerable, she fell into bad company and began relying on alcohol to escape her pain. This addiction lasted several years and took a heavy toll on her health. During this period, her mother, Gail, was often away due to her demanding job as a flight attendant, while Nicole lived with her grandmother. Neither realized how serious her drinking had become until the damage was undeniable. Once the problem came to light, Gail stepped in to help. She not only arranged therapy, but also attended Alcoholics Anonymous meetings alongside her daughter, offering strength and support. By then, Gail had remarried, and her new partner, Rod, treated Nicole with genuine kindness, encouraging her every step of the way. Nicole committed herself fully to her recovery. She never missed a session, and soon she was living sober again. Still, the years of abuse had left her body weakened. She underwent surgery for pancreas damage, and tragically her ability to have children was permanently affected. Despite this, Nicole pushed forward. In the mid-1990s, while working at the sports club, Nicole met David, a regular visitor. He was tall, good-looking, and disciplined about his fitness. He noticed the attractive coach and began showing interest. Though he was 4 years younger than Nicole, the two quickly connected and started a relationship that lasted 8 years. In 2002, they finally married, holding a modest yet beautiful wedding ceremony in Hawaii, with only their closest loved ones in attendance. Settling in Linwood, Washington, they bought a home together and appeared to the outside world as a happy, inseparable couple. Nicole, unable to have children, poured her maternal instincts into caring for her beloved dogs. She was warm, sociable, and loved by neighbors. Cooking was another passion, and she often spoiled David and their guests with homemade meals. To everyone around them, Nicole and David seemed like the perfect couple, but the truth would surface in time, and it would destroy everything. In 2006, just days before Nicole's 33rd birthday, something unthinkable happened. She disappeared. For the first time ever, she failed to show up for an AA meeting where she was a group leader and source of inspiration. Her absence alarmed fellow members immediately. She also didn't show up for work, which was equally concerning. By evening, her mother, Gail, grew frantic. She hadn't been able to reach her daughter all day, something that had never happened before. When Gail contacted David, his explanation raised even more questions. He admitted that the two had argued the night before, and when Nicole didn't answer his calls the next day, he assumed she was still upset. Believing she needed space, he hadn't searched for her. Only later that evening did he realize something was wrong. When Nicole didn't return home, her phone remained off and she was nowhere to be found. Her family reported her missing. Initially, police didn't act quickly. Since she was an adult and less than 24 hours had passed, they considered her absence voluntary. It wasn't until the second day that the search began. Investigators found nothing unusual in the couple's home. What stood out was that Nicole's car was missing, leading police to believe she may have simply driven off after an argument. Several theories emerged. Perhaps she had temporarily left David to teach him a lesson, or maybe she had relapsed into addiction. Friends recalled she was taking strong pain medication for a back injury and often exceeded the recommended dosage. Could that have triggered a relapse into alcohol? The third possibility was far darker, that Nicole was no longer alive. Her family refused to believe it, clinging to hope as they organized their own search. Gail and Rod flew to Linwood, plastered flyers across the area, and pleaded for help on social media. But within days, their worst fears were confirmed. A jogger, cutting through an isolated, overgrown area of a local park, stumbled upon a horrific sight, a naked, badly beaten female body. Police quickly arrived, and it was clear this was murder. The woman had been strangled with bare hands, showing extensive bruising and injuries. Investigators suspected both theft and possible sexual violence. Soon, the body was identified as Nicole Pietz. The confirmation devastated her family. Gail fainted when she saw her daughter at the morgue, needing medical assistance. Rod was heartbroken, but David's reaction stood out as odd. He didn't appear deeply affected, and some felt his grief looked staged. Police still focused on locating Nicole's missing car, believing it might hold critical evidence. The investigation into Nicole's disappearance entered a critical stage when, 2 weeks later, her gray Volkswagen Polo was located. The car had been abandoned in a parking lot on the outskirts of the city, where it sat unnoticed for days until a security guard finally reported it. Investigators hoped that the vehicle would unlock the mystery of what had happened to Nicole. They expected to find blood traces, signs of a struggle, or other physical evidence pointing toward the killer. But when forensic teams combed through the car, they found nothing of the sort. There were no stains, no hair, no fibers, suggesting that Nicole had been attacked inside. The only fingerprints and DNA belonged to Nicole herself and her husband David, who occasionally drove the car as well. This left detectives frustrated and, for a time, without direction. The theory that robbery had been the motive no longer made sense. If someone had stolen the car, why would they abandon it so quickly in an empty lot? The absence of any struggle or evidence of forced entry inside the vehicle further weakened the theft scenario. Another common motive, sexual assault, was also dismissed. Experts confirmed that Nicole had not engaged in any sexual activity, either forced or voluntary, for at least 24 hours before her death. That raised an unsettling question. If she had not been robbed and she had not been attacked in that way, why was her body found stripped of clothing? The sheer violence of the murder suggested another explanation. Nicole's body carried numerous bruises and injuries that looked like they had been inflicted in a fit of rage. Investigators began to suspect that the crime stemmed from a personal conflict rather than a random attack. But this conclusion only deepened the mystery because Nicole was known as kind, sociable, and helpful, a woman who did not seem to have enemies. Months passed, and the case remained at a standstill. Almost a year after her death, investigators still had no clear leads. No one had seen who left Nicole's car in the parking lot. The area was quiet, lacking surveillance cameras, which robbed detectives of potentially vital footage. However, they did notice something strange. The driver's seat inside the vehicle had been adjusted for someone much taller and larger than Nicole. That detail hinted that someone else, a man, had been behind the wheel in her final hours. The family grew increasingly frustrated as the investigation dragged on without results. What troubled them even more was the secrecy surrounding the case. Authorities classified key information, which meant that Gail, Rod, and David were largely kept in the dark about new developments. They received only occasional fragments of news. One of those fragments was particularly disturbing. Nicole's bank card had been used at a gas station after she disappeared. Surveillance footage from that location revealed a man making the transaction, and while his features were hidden by sunglasses and a hat, his build and appearance bore a striking resemblance to David. Investigators could not treat it as irrefutable evidence, but the recording was quietly added to the growing case file. As months stretched into years, Nicole's parents refused to accept silence. Convinced that someone out there knew the truth, they hired a private detective to conduct an independent investigation. They even offered a reward of $10,000 to anyone who could provide information leading to answers. Later, that reward was increased to $35,000, but even this substantial sum did not bring fresh leads. For all their efforts, the case remained stalled, and the person responsible for Nicole's death remained free. Meanwhile, David's behavior raised further suspicion. In the first 6 months, he had shown some interest in the investigation, but soon he distanced himself, cutting off communication with Nicole's grieving family. He remarried and eventually had a child, something Nicole had been unable to experience due to her health issues. For Gail, learning that her late daughter's husband had moved on so quickly was devastating, especially because she knew how deeply Nicole had suffered over her inability to have children. From the beginning, Gail suspected her son-in-law, though many dismissed her suspicion as grief and resentment. Police, at least publicly, seemed to treat the possibility with little seriousness. Then, 6 years after Nicole's death, everything shifted. Authorities announced that David had been taken into custody as the primary suspect. For those who had quietly suspected him all along, the arrest was not surprising. For Nicole's parents, it was the moment they had been waiting for, the long overdue step toward justice. But for David, the arrest came as a complete shock. Believing that the case had gone cold, he had lived his life as though nothing would ever come back to haunt him. When handcuffs were placed on his wrists, he appeared stunned, certain that the secret he had buried was now threatening to surface. He denied any involvement and even volunteered to take a polygraph test, which he failed badly. For investigators, the years of patient work were finally beginning to pay off. From the start, they had harbored suspicions about David, but they lacked the hard evidence to charge him. To prevent scaring him into fleeing or covering his tracks further, they had kept their suspicions quiet, all while quietly collecting every fragment of proof. David may have believed he had committed the perfect crime, but what he overlooked were the small, telling details that ultimately betrayed him. In September 2013, David finally faced trial. His defense argued the evidence was circumstantial, but there were simply too many incriminating factors to ignore. They tried shifting blame by suggesting Nicole had relapsed into drinking and made life unbearable for David, but these claims collapsed. Nicole had been sober for nearly 9 years, and all who knew her testified to her strength. Ultimately, David's guilt was proven beyond doubt. For the murder of his wife, he received the maximum sentence allowed, 18 years in prison. However, under state law, he may become eligible for parole in 2025 after serving 2/3 of his sentence. For Gail and Rod, the conviction brought some relief, but it could never erase their loss. Nicole's life had been stolen by the very person who had vowed to love and protect her. This is the story of Nicole Pietz, a woman who fought her way back from addiction, who inspired others with her courage, and who believed in love even when it betrayed her. Her life was cut short, but thanks to the persistence of investigators and the unwavering fight of her family, the truth finally came out. Nicole's story is a reminder that behind even the most picture-perfect lives, hidden struggles and dark secrets may exist. And while justice can take years, sometimes even decades, the smallest details can make all the difference in exposing the truth. Thanks for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel. There are many more shocking stories ahead of you.